Hello, this is Karen. Welcome to the webinar hosted by SIGUX. Today we're going to talk about student training, and I'd like to just test your GoToMeetings right now and just let me know that everybody's responding properly. So could you hit the raise your hand button? There we go. So some of you are paying attention today on this nice Wednesday. Great. This is what you'll use if you have a question as we're going through the webinar. For obvious reasons, everybody is kept on mute because there's always distractions and heavy breathing and people interrupting you and phones. So this way, if you have a question as we go, raise your hand. For those of you that do, and then what I'll do is unmute you. For those of you without a microphone and cannot talk, you can just type your question, and then I will read the question to everybody and respond that way. So let's get going. Also I wanted to let you know that the survey that some of you responded to, I'm going to send out the results today with the slides again in case you haven't gotten them. So we'll also record today's session, and that will be posted on the SIGUX website soon after today. All right, so I want to start out with a review of Grinnell College's student training program for IT staff. First, if I can make the technology work. Okay, so we have two different types of training. We do an 8-week training program for new hires. This is a mixture of workshops on Saturday morning for 8 Saturdays and also mentoring. Cheryl, I am showing you have a question already. Go ahead. Are you there, Cheryl?
I'm here. I wasn't raising my hand though.
Oh, okay. I'll put your hand down. All right, here we go. Our training program, as I said, was 8 weeks. We get the workshops on Saturday starting at 10 a.m. We get them up, and I give them lots of good sugar and food and fruit so that they are a little bit more motivated to come to the training classes. Also, if they miss any of the training, they don't finish our training program and they're not hired full-time, so that's a good motivator as well. We have 3 mentored sessions each week. That is considered a shift, a 2-hour shift. So they're technically getting a 2-hour session on Saturday plus 6 hours of training during the week, which is a mentored session. So the students are getting quite a bit of training for that 8-week period. They're also paid during that time. They're paid at a lower rate. It's $7.50 per hour, but they are paid for all their training sessions. We ask the mentors to do an evaluation in the midterm, and then we meet with any of the students at that time to discuss any concerns, things to improve, and then we ask the mentors to evaluate their mentees again at the end of this 8-week period, and that helps determine whether we hire them. The other kind of training that we have at Grinnell College is the continuing education for our current staff, and these are people who are already certified. We call them technology consultants, or TCs. We do a 2-day boot camp in the summer, which I know many of you do, and that involves anything from personality training to motivational stuff to what happened over the summer. We do a lot of digital media stuff, and I try to make that as fun as possible during that 2 days. And they get to move into the dorms early, so that is also a motivator for them besides getting paid. Okay, I'm going to go back to our basic training, our 8-week session. The first session is an orientation to the labs, the help desk, and AV center. We do a session on customer service, problem solving, Mac troubleshooting, Windows troubleshooting, digital media, Microsoft Office. With Microsoft Office, we only do training on troubleshooting. We expect that the students, most of them already are familiar with Microsoft Office. They can always go to the help if they need to use a kind of a advanced feature. So we don't spend a lot of time on Microsoft Office other than talking about what are the most common occurrences, what problems the staff has, our most common questions. We end this 8 weeks with what we call Booby Trap Lab, where we break about 10 computers, and in pairs the students have to go around and try to fix the computers, and then each set of students, between each set of students, we break them again for the next group. So they have to go through 10 different scenarios of actually fixing the computers. All our sessions are also activity-based. The workshops, none of them are PowerPoint presentations. They are all active learning, hands-on, and that's what keeps the students engaged. We also try to put in an element of fun so that they enjoy the time that they're there. So with the mentoring of our students, I found that it was really silly to keep having just training sessions because they weren't actually learning much other than during that 2-hour time period or that we had them. So what we started to do is actually giving them on-the-job training. This has been absolutely successful. We throw them in with a mentor, also making sure that the mentor is one of our better students. We don't want to put them with a poor role model. And we put them with, they could have different mentors through the week though. So they have an AV Center mentor, a Help Desk Center mentor, and someone that's working in the Mac lab with them. So they have they could have 3 different people mentoring them. And they have, this is great on-the-job training. They're servicing the students and the faculty while they're learning, and also they have some set expectations and projects and tasks that they have to complete during their mentor shifts. I have a question from Sheldon who asks, what's the average number of students in our training sessions? What I do is each year I hire enough students to cover those who are graduating. I have between 90 and 100 students at any given time. This year, for example, I have 24 students who are graduating. So in the fall, we actually hired 16 students. And then the spring training session, we just hired 12 more because we usually have a little bit of attrition. So we also don't want to turn anyone away that we think is going to be really good. So we actually hired a little more this spring than I'd like, but we'll cover all the students graduating. And also we have a lot of students who go abroad. So this will cover the 5 or 6 of them that will go abroad in the fall. One of the things that we give our mentors is a mentor guide. And so every single week at the Help Desk, the AV Center, and in the Mac Lab, there is a set guide of what we would like the mentor to do with their trainee that week. So this is an example of our Help Desk Mentor Guide for week 4 when they do some functions in Windows. Now, their first responsibility is, of course, answering the telephone and dealing with customers. However, we have 2 people staffing our help desk, and so there's usually time for the mentor to devote to the trainee in order to complete these tasks. We're trying right now to take our mentor guides and actually relate them more to the Saturday sessions, so that if we cover, say, digital media training on Saturday, then they'll have digital media type tasks in both the AV Center, Help Desk, and the Mac Lab during that week, but we're not quite that organized yet. Some other things that our TCs are allowed are other leadership opportunities, and this gives them an opportunity to either provide training or obtain training for various positions. And this is a really great motivator, and I would recommend it highly to anybody who's developing a student team, is to allow them to take a leadership role. We have currently a lab services coordinator who coordinates students who just work in our general purpose labs. The wiki coordinator is someone who coordinates the content of our wiki pages. I have 2 students who help me with assistive technology because that's also one of my jobs. We have just started this semester an app development team where we're working on some internal smartphone apps on Android and iOS to actually help us do scheduling and things. I have a system administrator who handles our internal server database, which is a Linux machine, and also our AV Center database, which is a Linux box as well. We have someone to coordinate our volunteer program, and I have 5 main student leaders, an admin coordinator, a help desk manager, 2 training coordinators, and an AV Center manager. And so these are all student positions. I have another question. How many end users do we serve? We have Student base of 1,600, so we're a small school. We have, I believe, 350 faculty and probably another 200 staff. So it's not as big as some of the big universities. And lab computers, we have 1,700 computers. Labs, I'm not sure the count, there's probably about 10 public places, but we also oversee departmental labs and research labs. One of the things I found that's very motivating is also allowing the students additional certifications. So after they go through their 8 weeks of basic training, they're eligible to just basically work in a lab. They can help students and staff or faculty in a lab situation. But then we offer these additional certifications so that if they do want to do more and learn more, they can then work in these other areas. So we have Help Desk Certification AV, Digital Media Specialist, which helps students with video projects, doing audio and video. We have facilitator training, which allows students who are interested in the educational part of our program to actually give trainings, help us design workshops. We do some dorm outreach sessions in our dormitories so that they can actually perform those sessions. We have a short mentor certification. We have a certification for hardware repair so that those working at our help desk can actually work on non-warranty machines. And then we also have a large Linux lab. So students who want to actually staff the Linux lab have to go through a special training for that. Something that we just started this year, and it's still kind of on the drawing board, is a TC Plus certification. And what we've done is, in order to become TC Plus, you have to meet these requirements. And these are our current requirements, and they're kind of in limbo where we haven't quite got them down yet, but this is a really neat motivator for students, keeping them on the job, keeping them interested in learning more things. And I think one of the problems that we have is, in general, is keeping the students motivated. If they like their job and they like what they're doing, and you're offering them some things that will benefit them, then they're more than willing to stay engaged with their jobs. This is a job while on campus that will benefit them greatly when they graduate. And so I think for those of us especially who can't pay very much, this is a great motivator, is take that piece and utilize that as promotion for hiring your best students. What happens with this TC Plus certification when they meet these requirements is that what I do is I keep track of all this stuff. I have a software program that keeps track of all their trainings that they've taken, certifications, anything that they've actually facilitated, and we actually give them, it's kind of a leather padfolio type thing with that logo right there, that star embossed on the front of it, and it contains a certificate for each of their trainings, each of their certifications, and it gives a letter of recommendation. And so I give them this leather-like thing that's tangible that they can take to job interviews or use in whatever way they want, but it's kind of a professional gift in order to say thank you, but it has a record of all the stuff that they've done while they were a technology consultant. This is our bulletin board that we have for communication. Hopefully there, I can get it on there for you. And so I have all of this stuff listed so that the students can actually go to this bulletin board and get the information, qualifications for our TC Plus, leadership opportunities. We have a Women in Technology group. So this is a neat little thing that I did on just Google Sites that just helps us with communication. Okay, why it works. And this is what I found in my 10 years of developing and having the TC program at Grinnell College. What I found is, as we all like to have in every job, the WIFM, what's in it for me. This age group is really, really set on what's in it for them. They want to know, why do I want to do this? They want to be engaged, they want to have fun, they want to know that they're contributing something. You know, they just don't want to clock in and clock out every day and not knowing that they're not, you know, contributing. So these are the kinds of things that I've helped develop in my program to both retain but also keep the students motivated so that they want to learn more, and that helps in training all the way around. We have built a sense of community. We have a great team of students, and we try to do things socially every once in a while, like have a movie night or have a game night or something. These pictures you see here are actually when we visited a pumpkin farm here in Grinnell. Iowa is a rural area, if any of you don't know that, and we have lots of cornfields. And so this was a place where they could go to, through a corn maze and visit a farm, which some of our international students have never seen a farm before, and also some of the kids from the city. So this was a really neat experience for them. By developing this sense of team, you also develop accountability to each other. And so you have students, for example, who do show up. They're less inclined to not show up for work because they know the person ahead of them will be burdened, or the person behind them in the schedule will be burdened. The other thing we try to do is make it fun. Fun is, you can do fun and pretty cheap. You know, you can have easy activities, crafts, you can buy candy bars. You don't have to have a lot of money to do fun. It's great if you do, because then you can do things more like food and pizza and travel. This pumpkin farm excursion cost us, I think I ended up having about 50 students attend. It cost each student, it cost us, I believe, $6. So that was $300 of resources, but they had a great time. And we, you know, literally, we could have even had a training session here on something if we wanted to be so motivated. Also, make the learning valuable. You know, they don't want to just sit through a PowerPoint presentation. Show them things that they are going to be able to use when they graduate. You know, a lot of your, especially your customer service skills, you know, this is something, let them know how valuable these skills are when they go out into the job market. They're more than willing to continue their education and to learn more if they know how it will relate to their future endeavors. Also, I think it's important to make sure they realize how much they are servicing the campus. You know, this is not just a punch-in, punch-out job. They're actually providing a service that benefits a lot of people, and I think if they understand that, they're more inclined to, you know, show up for work and things, and you develop this sense of responsibility. Another thing I found that has been a great motivator for both learning and for retention of my student staff is just to empower them. As I showed you before, we have some leadership opportunities. Those leadership opportunities are a safe place for them to learn some supervisory skills or some skills where they're not going to get in trouble if they fail. And so the more you can empower them, for example, we just started an app development team. Our app development team is going to work on, I believe the first thing is just a little directory module so that we can have all of our staff, student staff, phone numbers and contact information in our PDAs or in our smartphones so that we can reach somebody if we need to. And so this is a small thing that they can do, but they are so excited because this is going to look fantastic on their resumes. And this is something that, you know what, if it doesn't work, it's only going to hurt those of us who are testing, and then they can fix it and not worry about, you know, a big project just failing. One of the things, this is from the survey, these are the topics that you responded that you covered during training, and I see the number one was, of course, customer service, which we all try to cover, and then this is the ranking according to percent for the others. Some of the things that were also mentioned are at the bottom, like antivirus, clean access, VPN, video recording, but this is, you know, a big chunk of what we try to teach our students, and I can see that, you know, they're all similar. Regardless of whether you're from a small college, large college, we still kind of stick with the same topics. These were the list of topics for continuing education. I know a lot of classes, or a lot of schools do the 2-day boot camp or 3-day boot camp sessions in the summer because of scheduling issues during the year. These are some of the ideas that various people contributed to the survey on continuing education topics. Now, our training challenges, the things we just love the most. What I did is I put these into kind of 5 main categories. We all have the same challenges, and whether you overcome them or not, I think is just a matter of how tenacious you are about keeping at it, not giving up. We all know there's way too much information. How do you get all of this IT information to a little student person brain who is also taking classes and trying to do academics? Their schedules, that was my biggest thing when I started working with students, is how do you deal with all their schedules? We could not find a time to get them together, especially when you have 80 or 90 students. So coming up with when to train is also a big issue. Time and money. Who can do it? Where are your resources? Do you have money? Do you have time? I noticed on the survey that most of the responses when I asked who do you use for training, it was yourself or other IT staff. Very few people included or involved any other outside sources. So you're looking with people who are already really busy doing their jobs, and then you're throwing on top of them, here, let's train the students. How about responsibility? That's been a big complaint that I've heard over the years too. You have to often teach the basics of having a job. You have to tell them to show up on time. How do you get them to be responsible? And also the types of training, designing sessions that make them actually stay engaged instead of checking their email while you're sitting there trying to teach them something. So let's talk about what to teach. My recommendation to you would be figure out what are the main objectives. What do you want the students to be able to either know or perform when they're finished with your training session? And keep it simple. 5 things, not 20. Think about what other knowledge they need to know that maybe is not as important or more detailed that you can just create a wiki page for. And let me show you our wiki. Here is our TC Wiki. So what we've done is taken tasks that occur, for example, at our help desk that I don't need someone to memorize how to do it. If we create some good instruction, all they need to do is check the wiki and then follow the instructions. So we have several hundred pages of instructions for students that we do not have to worry about training them on. I can say, this is how you use the wiki, here's how you search, here's all of the topics, and go for it. So, you're taking someone that already has some basic knowledge, they can handle just going instructions from step 1 to step 2. Also, figure out how to measure your objectives. So you're going to determine, I want these 3 things for my students to know at the end of this workshop. How are you going to measure them? How are you going to know that they're actually performing to your standards so that you can tell whether or not you want to hire this person or whether or not they need more coaching? So you figure out a way to measure. And if you come up with some decent objectives, measuring is not usually a problem. You might have, able to answer a help desk call and put a ticket into our ticketing system, within a whatever period of time. That's something really easy to measure just by observation. So think about carefully what is it you want to teach and what is the information that is the most important that they come out with. I think sometimes we try to do everything in such a short period of time, and that's when we lose the students and they don't really learn anything because they're not paying attention. Okay, I have a couple other questions. What software do you use to keep track of your students and their progress? I just bought this software. It was about $300 on the web called Training Manager, and it's pretty cool actually, and I've been able to modify it to deal with our stuff. So if that's something, Lynn, I have your address here. I'll send you a link to if you guys are interested in something to keep track of trainings and things like that, required trainings. It's kind of cool. I can put in what the requirements are. For example, I can say that I want a student to have virus training, and it will actually send them an email and remind them that they need to still do this. So I haven't actually worked with that functionality yet, but it was pretty cool so far. Another question, do you offer pay increases as they increase their knowledge? We only have 2 levels of pay, and I have no control here at the college on pay, and that's why I try to do so much other stuff and promote how this will benefit you outside of when you graduate from college. They're paid $7.50 during training, and then they're paid $8.25 once they finish their training, and that's considered a technical position at the college. And then my student supervisors are paid $8.85 an hour, and the requirement for that increase is that they have to supervise other people. So all of my student leadership positions technically supervise the other students. They all get that extra pay. Oh, I'm getting a question about the image on this slide. This is also from the pumpkin farm. This is Sunanda, who is learning how to milk a cow. She's from India. And so I think that's a little interesting, being from India and having to try to milk a cow. So we went to the pumpkin farm, and that was one of the trainings that were offered there. Okay, our next problem or challenge is when to teach. When do we find time? You have to schedule things when the students can make it, and this is something that you have to just realize this is part of the job, and you'll have more success if you're willing to do an evening or weekend so that they're able to attend a session. I also recommend keeping them short. There's no reason to have, a half day or an all-day workshop. Do some shorter things for 45 minutes. Do like a lunch and learn, or get everybody together in the dining hall and have them get their food and go to a room and do some kind of training while you're eating lunch together. One of the things we've done that's been very successful, as I said, is we've incorporated the tasks that we want the students to be able to do into the mentor's responsibilities. So as part of the mentor's job each week, they need to go through their mentor guide and teach the student or their mentee those things that we've asked them to do for that week. One of the things that we're starting to look at too is doing podcasts and video. We have an orientation session, so when we hire new students, we do probably about a 1-hour orientation session. And one of the things we have to talk about is policies, and that is probably one of the most boring subjects in the world. So what we've actually done is I've had some students make some really cute videos on our most important policies. For example, our students are not allowed to do homework while they're working or wear headphones. We want them to be what we call approachable when they're working in a lab situation. So we've created a video that shows kind of how not to be. And we have a student that's got all their books stacked around them, and they're on headphones, and they're doing chat on the computer, and they're not paying attention to the general lab where they're supposed to be serving the customers. And so this shows the students in a kind of a fun way why we have the policy. It's not that we just don't want people to do homework because we're paying you. It's that there's actually a reason why we don't want you to do homework. And so having these little short little YouTube video clip things are actually funny. So we show these during orientation, and they learn and remember quite a bit about our policies based on these videos. Webinars, I haven't done anything like that. I could probably try to do a webinar where you could have all the students in their jammies in their room and maybe get together at a weird time and do something on the web. I've thought about that, but I haven't actually done it yet, but that would be an option. And as I said, sharing meals. They're already on dining programs. Buy a meal yourself in the dining hall and go eat with them. And they're already there eating. You've already got their attention. They're actually eating, so they're not talking, which is maybe a good thing. And that way you guys can do a quick little lunch and learn, and then everybody goes off and does their own thing. I have a question. How do you maintain active training in larger group settings? And what mainly with a larger group, can you tell me what your number is? What is your significance of being larger? What I normally do is break them into smaller groups. So if we have a group of 80, for example, if we have in the summer, we break them into smaller groups and they work in teams. We'll do one thing together as a group, the instructions, for example, we did the Real Colors personality training back in August. We had the students actually take the quiz all as a group, and then once we determined what colors they were, we divided them up into color groups of 8 to 10 people to actually do the smaller projects. And then we reported back as a group at the end. So the best thing to do is to break them up into more manageable groups. When we do video training, we actually assign them a small group of 3 or 4 people to work on a video together. So they come together for instruction, and then they're assigned their group, and then they go off and do their own project, and then we come back and maybe a day later or whenever the project is due, and we show everybody's videos and critique them. Resources. This was another big challenge for most of us. Money, time, and staff. As you can see, my general theme, use your students. Use them. They are fantastic at their jobs, or most of them could be. I shouldn't speak for everyone, but I have great student workers, and so I take those best ones, and they also are usually the most motivated. They want more on their resumes. They want to learn how to do various things like hardware repair and things. So once we get a superstar student in, say, the help desk, we use that student to help do training for the help desk students on, say, hardware. So use them as facilitators. Use them also to help with workshop design. They may not want to or be able to present a workshop or do a training, but they are really good at telling you what should be in the training. I am constantly asking my students, what is it, now that you're full-time TC, what is it that we didn't train you on when you were during your 8 weeks that we should have in order to help you do your job better? And that's how our training program has evolved, is from their input as to what it is we need them to do. Now, some of the training has evolved because of campus needs. We're starting to do more and more video projects, and that's why digital video and audio has become part of our basic skills training, because we have more faculty and staff, or faculty and students, doing projects that you have to import the video from a camera, and you have to be able to use iMovie, things like that. So, both ways. Get the input from your students. Use them also to create wiki pages. We have them do wiki pages while they're on shift, so if they're not busy, they can sit and contribute a wiki page on a particular topic. We have a wiki wish list of topics, so they can take a topic off the list and write a wiki page, and then therefore that's helping them, and it's also something then we can use for the future for our other students and for training, and also for we also have public wiki pages too. Oh, I also didn't mention, make sure that you feed them once in a while. That is a great motivator. Food is a great motivator. So hopefully you have resources that you can buy pizza once in a while or something, but that's a really good, at least I found food is something that gets them to come to training and be happy and engaged, and it's also kind of social. Another challenge that many of you talked about in the survey was being able to teach them responsibility, or having students who seem to do well in the beginning, they understand the policy, but then they kind of fade off. One of the things I learned the hard way when I took over managing students is that they don't know some really basic things. I remember when I was 13 and 14 and went to babysit, my parents always taught me things like, leave the house cleaner than you found it. If there's a few dishes in the sink, go ahead and wash them even if they're not yours. And, all these things that our moms and dads and grandparents taught us as we grew up, these ethical type things. Well, the students nowadays don't get that. And you have to just accept it and move on. One of my favorite little acronyms is GOMO. Get over it, move on. You have to realize that this is something you must teach if you want a successful employee. So yes, on the first orientation session, when we talk about this will be your shift and this is when you're scheduled, and if you're scheduled at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, it means that you have to show up for work before 2 o'clock and be able to punch in. So you might have to be there at 1:55, and when it says you work till 4 p.m., that means you stay till 4 p.m. or after. So we have to actually go through some of that basic stuff with them. And at first I really resented it. It kind of ticked me off that I'm having to spend time on this stuff, but I didn't realize that these are things that are not taught in all households in the world, especially some of the international students where there's various customs, and it's okay to be 15 minutes late everywhere you go, or it's, okay to dress a certain way. I'm not going to get into, I don't think we get into talking about bathing, but, that's even come up. Making sure, you haven't worn the same shirt for 15 weeks and it really smells when you're working at the help desk. Also having policies and consequences. We have some pretty strict policies, and I guess because the program is one that the students like and they want to stay involved in, they adhere to the policies. For example, they cannot have an unexcused missed shift more than 3 times in 2 consecutive semesters. This is something, or I'm sorry, it's 4 times. At 3 times they're talked to, and at 4 times they're fired. I haven't had to fire someone in years for this. And unexcused means is like a no-call, no-show. Excused absences are fine, but when you just don't show up for work for whatever reason, but you don't follow the procedures to post your sub or contact one of the student leaders, that's considered a missed shift. So 4 missed shifts and you're out. And I honestly have not had to fire someone for probably about 5 years because they like the program, they want to stay in, they follow the procedures. It's worth it to them to keep track and follow the procedures. Also, one of the best things I ever did was to create a leadership team. So my leadership team are the 5 students that I mentioned. We have an administrative coordinator. She handles things like making sure people are showing up when they're supposed to and helping with payroll, disciplinary things. We have a help desk coordinator, an AV center coordinator, and 2 training people. So get a group of students. These are students who are your best leaders, and then you coach them to be supervisors and managers. This is a great place to be able to delegate responsibility, and so you don't have to do everything. And this is also a good motivator for them to actually look forward to applying kind of another job that they can apply for, promotion in such sort of a way. So I would recommend that you have student leaders. One of the last challenges was type of training, meaning how do you keep the students engaged? It's not by, the PowerPoint slides. That doesn't do it. PowerPoint slides reminds me of the Charlie Brown teacher, where it's, wah, 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 where you're not really paying attention. The reason I titled this workshop Sleeping with Their Eyes Open was about 7 years ago. I had a student leader, one of our student leader training leaders, doing a training session. I believe it was on our ticketing system. So it was for help desk students. It was how to put in tickets, how to close them, and all that, how to manage the tickets. And she did the most beautiful PowerPoint presentation. It had transitions and pretty colors and great fonts and all sorts of things. And it was really amazing. I was watching these students in the back of the room, and I swear they were asleep, but their eyes were open, and they were staring at the screen, but they weren't really moving, and they were just kind of breathing. And that was when I realized that she put all this effort into this. We had 30 people in the room that were taking time out to be here. We had my time involved, and nobody was learning anything. And that's the day that I had this epiphany, and I decided that things from now on, we're going to all be active. We're going to involve all of the participants actually in the training so that things are active and they're engaged and they're not zoned out while you're trying to teach them something. Amy, I see you have a question, and so I'm going to unmute you. Oh, I'm sorry, you're on the phone. I can't unmute you. So if you want to type your question, that would be great. So your challenge is designing sessions that engage your students. Make them activity-based. It's not difficult. It takes practice, but it's not difficult. And there are great books out there, too. One of them is called Active Learning. And I'll send you guys out, when I send out the survey information, I'll send out some resources that I think are really fabulous. But one of them, just making something active. And making it active can be doing a skit, can be getting them up and moving them around, can be discussions. Just getting students involved in the learning process. Don't just let them sit there and you just lecture to them. One of the things I try to stick to is a 60-minute session or a 2-hour session where you have 2 periods of 60 minutes. Breaking them down into 20-minute sessions, and I took a class a couple years ago on brain-based learning, and it talked about how your brain functions, and that 20 minutes is about what a human can stand without taking a break. So what we try to do is put our sessions into 20-minute blocks. So we'll take the second most important thing and talk about it or do an activity for 20 minutes. Then we take like, 2-minute break or move around or something. Then we do the least most important thing in the second 20-minute block, and then the most important thing in the last 20-minute block, and then we actually take a break. So then it would be moving around, getting up, getting something to drink, going to the bathroom, something where you're physically moving, a game, throwing a ball around, doing something to actually move around, and then doing your second 60-minute set. We don't ever go over the 2-hour limit though. And you probably all have attended sessions, gone to various workshops that have been all day learning a particular skill, and you come back and 3 months later you don't even remember anything that you've learned. I found just recently a workbook from a seminar that I attended in Des Moines 2 years ago, and I found the workbook and I saw my handwriting in it, but I don't actually remember attending the seminar. It was not very effective, apparently, because I haven't retained anything from it. Okay, let's see if everybody's awake now. We're going to make a topic interesting. The way you can do this is just to brainstorm. No idea is stupid. Think about being activity-based or a unique way of presenting. For example, I saw an interesting video of a child explaining IP connections. So you have a little child, probably about 10 years old, that was taught to say, things with big words about networking, and it was a neat way of presenting really boring information, but it kept you engaged because it was kind of silly. So think about ways you can be fun, have a unique way of presenting, activity-based, and we're just going to brainstorm right now, and if you can write in your chat window or your question window what you think is your answer. Our topic is training someone to talk on the phone at the help desk. So I would like you to tell me what ideas you might have to make help desk call training more engaging. Okay. Here we go. Simulations, role-playing. Oh, I thought I could write this, but it's better if I say it. It's going to be faster. So we have creating a simulation of good and bad calls. That's a great idea. Use a real phone. I know a lot of people can actually do a phone where someone can listen while their person is talking, which I think is a great idea. Mock phone calls, that's a great one. Role play, simulate phone calls, using role play in a training situation. Role play is the big one here. Have someone be the user from hell, that is a great idea. Have a very negative person on the phone and then have your help desk person actually learn how to deal with that. We have that with faculty quite often, I should say. Have student workers not on shift call in with questions. Set up fake calls for trainees with some real and funny, interesting calls. That sounds really fun too. Teach a small segment, then have them take on actual call to enforce the training. Calls the end user, set up a scenario, and list mystery callers. Oh, that's a great idea. You could probably have faculty and staff get involved with that. Video skits. Here's one. Lori has many of her new students have never used an office phone, only cell phones. That's really interesting. I never thought about that. Especially I know some of you, and I'm not going to ask you to raise your hands, remember dial phones. I grew up with a dial phone. Use remote desktop connections to fix a problem. Ask students to think of every call as your boss's parent. Oh, that's a good one. Have novice students, the ones who are being trained, make the call to see what it's like from the caller's point of view. Put in red herrings. Have multiple students offer ways to respond to one call at the same time. Have students listen and not answer too soon. Listening, I think, is a great skill to teach. We do a whole listening activity with dominoes where we have the students sit back to back, and one of them has to give instruction to the other on how to make the pattern in the dominoes, but they can't talk to the person doing the actual dominoes is not allowed to say anything. So we're teaching them how to give good instruction, and then they do the exercise again. They swap partners and they do the exercise again, and this time the second person is allowed to talk, and so there's feedback involved, and that's kind of a neat instruction or a time where they can actually get some instruction on how to do the phones. A game to teach folks to smile while they're on the phone. Have somebody call in on the phone with varying facial expressions and ask the student trainees to mirror their expression. That's a great idea. I know I have gotten some great ideas already from this session. Call recording and monitoring feedback. That's a great idea too. Record them on the phone and then let them hear themselves and figure out how that they could do better or what they did well. All right, you guys are good. So let's open it up to any questions. This time you're going to have to either raise your hand or type a question for me, and then I will unmute you so that you can talk to the group. Let me just go back. I will provide any information that you want. When I send out the survey results, you have my email address, so if you want anything that I've shown you, copies of our mentor guides, whatever, feel free to ask, and I'll be happy to share anything with you. Okay, Jerry, I'm going to unmute you. Go ahead.
Yes, you mentioned that you use a wiki that has a number of documents in it. How do you manage maintaining that to keep it accurate when you get, as you have several hundred, we have several thousand?
I have a wiki coordinator, and so it is that person's job to monitor the new stuff going in to make sure it's accurate, and to also we have a time date stamp so that we check pages periodically. So it's their job to go through and pull out the pages that are either no longer valid or need to have changes made to them. And so we, if the page is expired or whatever, they actually take it out of the wiki until it's ready to go again, and then they put it back in. Now in your case, with thousands of documents, you may need more than one person to do this. We're okay with just the one person. Plus we have all of our TCs, which are 80 people, contributing to the wiki. So we do have technically a bunch of editors, but we do only have the one kind of librarian. Does that help?
Yeah, we actually distribute it amongst full-time students and staff to, and again, an expiration date to do that. But even so, with the number that we have, it's kind of difficult to keep up to date on it.
Can you auto-expire anything?
We can. Typically what we wind up doing is put a review date on it, and if it's something that's only a short term, it auto-expires. In other words, like a policy that, or a process that only exists for a quarter or semester, something like that.
Okay. Because my biggest concern was I didn't want old information out there. I'd rather have no information than bad information. And so one of the things I've been really pushing is to make sure we just at least pull the page if it's old, or we have to update it so that nobody is getting bad information.
Yeah, the way that we do it is it has a review date, and if the review date is more than a week old or something, we have reminders that go out to say you need to take care of that, which has worked fairly well, but still the quantity, sometimes when someone's on vacation or something like that, a few things fall through the cracks for a couple of weeks.
Sounds good. Probably depends on what wiki tool you're using too. Do you know what yours is?
We use a custom developed knowledge base that has a variety of different things in it so that it's got a public view and a private view, so that we can, if we have a question that has some policy sitting behind it, only the internal folks can see that, but everybody outside can see the basic stuff.
Yeah, we do that too. We have an internal section where the TCs get access to, and then we have a public view so that some of the stuff just general students and faculty can actually access. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, any more questions? Go ahead and raise your hand or type your question. I missed a question here. It says she missed, this is Amy, and she missed what GOMO stands for. GOMO means get over it, move on. That's one of my favorite sayings. So that was regarding the fact that you're going to have to teach students to show up on time, which is very disheartening, but something you must do. And another question, are you willing to share some of our certification documents? And that is yes, anything you guys want, I will be happy to share. I've spent a lot of years getting this program to where it's at, and I'm very proud of it, but also it would not be where it's at if it wasn't for the student input. And I cannot say that enough. You know, it's kind of a self-motivator too. When you give students more of a leadership responsibility, they will take that. Most of them anyway, will take that and do great things with it. And, you know, especially with policies, the students are harder on themselves or harder on each other than sometimes I am. And so it's amazing what they can do. So most of our policies were actually developed by the students. So we asked those people who are actually in the trenches, how do we make things better? And they are the ones that come up with some great ideas. Okay, I have questions. Will this presentation be available so we can watch and listen later? Yes. Christine will be wonderful, and she'll put it on the SIGUX website, and I will send you guys all the link when she does that. Bonnie has a question. We are hiring our first group of students. Any suggestions for someone just starting out? I'm sorry, Bonnie, that you're in this position. No, it's really great. I think that's fantastic. I don't know. Let's group. Okay, group. What are your suggestions for Bonnie, who is just starting out hiring her first group of students? I know you're all have things to share. Jerry, I'm going to unmute you. Go ahead.
I think probably the most important thing is to hire the right students to start off with. And in the last session you did talk a little bit about some of the techniques that you use to do that, where you'd have like an email pre-review to make sure the students at least have the basic qualifications. And then, in my opinion, spending as much as an hour in the interview with whatever questions that you have to, you know, make sure that you hire the right person with the right skills and that kind of stuff. As you mentioned, I think customer service is very important, but you can't ignore the technical skills either. If someone is interested, they get overwhelmed. So there's just a whole variety of things. Maybe one of the things that we can do is share information amongst ourselves. I have a variety of questions that I ask and scenarios and that kind of stuff that might be of interest to others.
That's a great idea. Yes, you know, we are the best resource for all of us is this group of people who manage students. And I, you know, jokingly call us zookeepers, but, you know, sometimes that's what it feels like. And we are the best resource. So, you know, for those of you who have access to, you know, we're sponsored by SIGUX. We have great discussion lists. This is something you can throw out on a SIGUX list and get lots of responses. ResNet has a great discussion list. You can throw out these questions and get some feedback from all of the other people who are in your same position. I have a question from Sheldon Jones. Your students work as help desk support. Do they also work as on-site support assisting faculty? And the answer is yes. Our help desk students actually will go out to faculty offices or help them load software or things. We also have them working for IT. They do specific things like software upgrades and computer replacements and things also, as we need them to do that. His second question, what type of training is offered to teach them how to deal with faculty? I don't know if we specifically rule pull faculty into their own group, although it's mentioned when we deal with customer service training. So when I'm the one who actually does the customer service training too. That's an opportunity for me to get to know the new students. Although I have students and other people doing the other sessions, that's one of the sessions that I actually like and enjoy. And one of the things I do try to talk about is someone difficult and someone that has a big ego, which is most of our faculty. So this is something I guess that we covered during that time. Another question from Robert. Do you or anyone on this call allow your help desk students to use remote desktop programs? Okay, anybody out there allow students to use remote desktop? Can you raise your hand? All right, I'm going to unmute Debbie Boyle. Go ahead, Debbie. Are you there? Debbie? I don't know if Debbie has a mic. Okay, how about James Lyons? Are you there, James?
Yeah, it's James at Guilford College. We actually just recently started allowing our students to use the Windows Remote Assistance, and we use through Active Directory. They can offer it to a client, but that way it leaves the approval for control on the client end, so there's no worry of Big Brother spying on the faculty or students having uncontrolled access to the faculty. Keep out any appearance of impropriety there.
Did you have any pushback on doing that? Were they really opposed for you guys to be able to do that?
Well, there's actually been a lot of push to do that because our students are our primary Tier 1 and 2 support. So being able to provide that kind of quick interface with the faculty and staff. There's been some people, raise the concern of, privacy and all that, and that's why we use the remote assistance rather than VNC or remote desktop, that sort of thing. And anybody who doesn't feel comfortable with it can just say, no, I don't want to do that. Can you please come to my office? And we do that without hesitation.
Okay, that sounds good.
Yeah.
Thank you. Jerry, I'm going to unmute you. Go ahead.
Yeah, we do the remote assistance as well, but primarily with senior students that have been with us for a couple of years, and we know they're responsible.
Any politicalness that you had to fight or issues with faculty doing that?
No, most of them, the students are informed to advise the faculty exactly what they can see and that kind of stuff, and for the most part, since our campus is rather large and scattered around, it just makes it much easier to be able to do that, especially if you cannot, if they're moving the mouse in some weird place that you can't really describe. It's much easier to see what they're doing.
That's great. All right, thank you, Jerry. All right, Lynn Jeffers, I'm going to unmute you. Are you there, Lynn? Oh, wait, I can't unmute you. I don't think you have a mic. So I hope, Robert, that they'd answered most of your questions about that. I heard a school, we haven't done that yet here. It's something I'd like to get going on maybe in the fall, and that's mainly because our IT staff we just don't have our ducks in a row yet to be able to do it. But I heard of a school when I went to the last SIGUX conference in the fall that what they do is they tell their faculty, well, we can remote into you currently right now where you have to give us permission and can watch what we're doing, or we can schedule a time sometime next week or the week after that a technician can come out to you. So it's amazing the number of people that actually will allow the remote desktop in when they know they have to wait, a week or two to get someone to come out to their office. Okay, I have a comment from Lucas about agreeing the fact that we need to hire the right students, figure out their strengths and interests, and utilize those to make their contributions that much better. So that has to do with what Bonnie asked about hiring her first group of students. I think it's important, like many of us have all said, to hire the right group, try to get the right ones from the beginning. Lori Fox, she has expressed that she focuses more on their customer service skills than their technical skills, and someone who is interested in technology will pick it up quickly. I think that's true also. The curiosity with technology is something that you can't really teach, and so when you find people who are into technology. Maybe they're not computer science people, which you don't want all of, but they're just interested in technology and they use technology. Those are the best people, I think, to have helping with technology. All right. I have a question from Bill. How do you address how a student should address a faculty or staff member? This is a pretty informal campus, and so that's not an issue for us. So does anybody else have any advice about how do you teach the students to address faculty or staff members? Anyone? Okay, James, I'm going to unmute you. Go ahead.
Well, at Guilford, we're based on the Quaker principles and such, so equality and all that. So students, faculty, staff generally refer to each other by first name. There are, of course, some people who have, different traditions and preferences. So if somebody, says, I'd like to be, referred to as Mr., Ms., etc., they can do that. But the baseline here is first name basis from everyone. Our president is Kent, not President Shabatar.
That's a great idea. Okay, Jerry, I'm going to unmute you again. Thank you, James. Go ahead, Jerry.
When we have, when a person calls in, we actually look, the first thing we do is look up in our database who they are. And for the most part, it's not really a problem. The students are trained in customer service very rigorously to treat everybody as they would their own parents in terms of respect and that kind of stuff. And we really haven't had any problem with that in probably the past 4 or 5 years. I can't remember a single incident where that's been a problem.
Yeah, we're pretty informal here, and so I don't know that has ever been an issue. Okay. Our next question, does it ever occur that your students who are seniors start to show less and less commitment to their job? How do you deal with this situation? Oh, senioritis. Yes, we're experiencing that. We experience that every spring. And currently, now we are experiencing that. The one thing that I have done to remedy this situation is just encourage them to take less shifts. And they do mostly because they want to do more social stuff. There's more things going on at the college regarding graduation. We have just hired, as I told you, we hire in the fall and in the spring. So in the fall, I technically have hired 16 new people above and beyond what we actually need to support our facilities that have finished their training program that are ready to take general shifts. And so those 16 people get added into the pool, which allows the seniors or whoever, if they have a high academic level, of classes this semester and want to cut down, they can cut down because we have these other people that can jump in and fill in. So we encourage them not to take as many hours. And like I have one guy right now, he's in the last 2 weeks, we didn't realize this, we weren't checking because of some other things going on, but we just found out he's missed 8 shifts. Didn't contact anybody, hasn't shown up for work 8 times in 2 weeks. So technically he's a senior, he's going to graduate this year, but he's going to actually be fired. So maybe not fired, but we'll call it suspension so it doesn't actually kill him for job references. But this is something that we just encourage them to not take as much work. And if we see something happening right in the beginning, like if they miss something, our admin coordinator's right on them, and we'll ask, do you want to just drop the shift? Is this something that's going to be a problem? We also have the group who, usually I hate to say it's a male, I call it peeing on Grinnell. And what they want to do is they want to leave their mark. And so we often have a senior, it's usually a senior male, who thinks they can do things better than any of the IT people ever who've worked here. And, so they'll cause a little ruckus that way too. So I've had both the not really engaged in your job plus the ones that kind of go a little too overboard and want to revamp the entire IT department while they're still here before they graduate. Okay, a couple more questions and then we'll be done. We don't have enough funding to send people out, so RD helps immensely. RD, Lisa, what do you mean by RD? If you're still there. And let's go on to the next question or comment. Empowering the students leads to great student workers. This is from Joe. Our remote tool requires the users to give permission for their students. So that, I think, is the majority of most people who are using the remote. It seems like that they're asking the user to give permission, and so that takes the liability right off. And, you know, I don't think people realize that we don't, in our free time, just like go investigate what's on your hard drive. So that having them ask for permission and then give permission allows the person to actually watch what they're doing too, which I think is a great thing. Okay, we use the TeamViewer application for campus and distance learning. That's not one I'm familiar with. For distance learning support, so that's something that those of you who haven't investigated might want to check TeamViewer. Lynn, I'm going to unmute you again if you're still, let me see, let me find you. And it says you do have a mic, so go ahead. Are you? No, I'm sorry, it's not letting me unmute you. So let me, Lynn's comment, this was about the support. Oh, wait a minute, I'm sorry. Our student, this is called BOMGAR. All of our students use it, everyone loves it, and some people specifically ask for it when they call. So that's regarding the remote desktop tool, BOMGAR. That's not one I'm familiar with either, so that'll be a good one to check out. Rick's comment, the right ones, in quotations, have a balance of interpersonal skills, organizational skills, and technical skills in that order. That's a good comment because that is basically what we're looking for when we hire, is mostly the interpersonal skills. Lucas Friedrichsen replies, in our environment, all customers are the same. Treat them all with respect, courtesy, and provide the same excellent service to everyone. That's a really good mantra. You know, the question was, do you teach them to address faculty and staff differently? But you think, really, everyone should be treated the same, regardless of their position at the college. Although I know when our president calls, you know, he gets first-rate treatment more than anyone else. Rick Shoemaker has said the 3 Ps, prompt, polite, and professional. You guys are brilliant. I'm going to get all these comments together too, and I'll send them out to the group so you guys can all have record of this stuff as well, all these comments and suggestions. Robert is asking, does anyone have a dress code for their student staff? So anybody who's still listening, do you have a dress code for your student staff? And can you explain it? Go ahead and raise your hand. Okay. Andrew, are you there? Go ahead.
Yes, we require that they no shorts or anything like that. That must be long pants, and a heavy preference to collared shirts whenever possible. But certainly no big logos on the t-shirts. So they kind of business casual level, but no shorts, no sandals, period.
Do you have any pushback from the students on this dress code?
No, we find actually they've been pretty good at rising to the occasion. It makes them feel more professional. And I'm at the University at Albany, part of the SUNY system, by the way.
Oh, that's good. I would think that they'd complain.
We've got a pretty good crop of students. I personally just picked them up over the last summer. But they've, given the chance, I find they've risen to the occasion quite well.
Great. Well, thank you for sharing with us. I'm going to unmute Lori Such. Are you there, Lori? Lori, are you there? Oh, I don't think she has a mic. Oh, Lori's comment is she has no hats, no exposed midriff, no holey jeans. Shorts are fine in the summer. In the faculty exploratory, she doesn't like flip-flops. So that's their dress code. Lori's at University of Michigan. Let's see, let's do one more question. Oh, here's a comment. Also, one of the things that was expressed with the senioritis problem is make sure you remind them that you're their job reference. And that is a great suggestion. Remind them that you're the one that's going to be their job reference in the next few months when they're looking for a job or an internship. Okay, let's do one more. I have Stephen who commented, in regards to responsibility, we like to tell the students that what they are doing is really important, that we rely on them, and that we truly wouldn't be able to adequately run our facilities without their hard work. That is a great way to end this session, I think. Anybody else wants to email me questions, I can post them to the group. Go ahead, as I said, to use the SIGUX lists, the ResNet lists, and send out questions to all the great IT people who are out there zookeeping as well as we are. I will post, or I send you guys a note about when this webinar will be posted on our website, and I'll give you also the survey results and the comments that were expressed at the webinar today. So thank you. I appreciate your time, and I hope you all have a great day. We have like 50-degree weather here in Iowa, which we haven't had for months, so I'm so excited to go outside. And I will see you guys at the next webinar, or talk to you at the next webinar. Have a great day.